are back in the VIP rooms with your girl Kelsey
and Brianna.
And we have some really dynamic women in the building. Just getting into the deepness of our show today.
Yes.
We got to have the doctor tell her story and a little bit about her organization.
Yes,
so you have the floor.
Enlighten us.
Hi, thanks for having me here tonight.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Cecilia Martin. Everybody knows who I am. Most people call me Cece.
Cece.
Kids call me Dr. Mom. But yeah, before we went to break, you talked a little bit about the anger from sexual abuse, and I think that is sort of the route that I took. I was molested by my uncle at beginning of age 6, and then when I was in middle school, I was raped at knife point.
Oh, wow.
And then I was also raped in the military. Wow. So I had a lot of stuff that I was dealing with. By the time I was in high school, I was extremely angry, as you can imagine, because the molestation started with my uncle. And it took years for me to, actually talk about it. But for me, my organization team, which is an acronym which stands for Train, Equip, Empower, and Mobilize, is really about helping youth and young adults, as well as really anybody, pull themselves up from their bootstraps and to move forward, no matter what you are challenged with in life. Because in education, that is my platform, and that is how I reach out to other people, particularly those who are hurting and those who are underserved, those who have been written off. Because I was that child. I was in high school. Nobody believes me except for the people who lived through it, which is my mom, my poor mom, bless her heart. But I was always suspended. I was drinking. I was truant. I was insubordinate. I was fighting, and I was so tiny, so I already had that little person syndrome. And dealing with the anger of molestation, because I wasn't talking about it, I was acting out. And a lot of times, especially in urban settings, we see children who are acting out, and people assume that they can't learn, they can't be educated, they can't be taught, they can't be dealt with. When the reality of it is, you really need the emotional stamina to deal with the larger issues that they have been faced with. And so, again, that's sort of my level of advocacy is through education, and that's why I wanted to go as far as I could go in education with getting my PhD. I really began talking about my experiences in college. I was a freshman, and I remember being in Jackie Hall's class, so if she's listening somewhere, thank you. But she had given us a writing prompt in English, and it said, write about your fondest childhood memory. And that writing prompt set me off because I didn't have any fond childhood memories. As a result of the molestation and rape, I actually suffered from a memory block, where you just remember the major traumatic things, but you can't remember, anything else of substance. And so I wrote my essay, and I still have it to this day. And I just proceeded to tell her, I don't have any fond childhood memories, and this is what happened to me, and my uncle molested me, and I've been raped, and da-da-da-da, and I just went, from A to Z. And I actually turned in that paper. And she graded it, and she wrote me a very nice note at the end of it, and she said she wanted to talk to me. And I remember standing on Morgan State University's campus, hello Morganites, and her talking to me and telling me that I could get beyond this. In my freshman year in college, I too attempted suicide. And if it wasn't for some very good people and a Christian organization called Alpha Nu Omega, I wouldn't be where I am today. Just connecting with them was very helpful for me. New A. So again, I did go a different route in terms of I tried counseling at several points, but you get good counselors and bad counselors. You really have to be careful with that because not everybody's equipped or really credentialed to deal with that type of sensitive issue, you really can't just talk to anybody.
Anybody, right. Right, most definitely. So for you, after that first time in your freshman year, just first saying it, did you then go and talk to other students, or when did you start your platform?
What I did was I talked to other people. Before I left for college, I actually joined the military at 17.
Okay.
My mother had to sign for me to join. But I wanted to be all I could be. And I think I served my country well. And I'm very proud of that. But the dilemma was I was joining the Army as another level of sort of training and equipping myself, being disciplined and reaching my full potential. But then I get into the Army, and then I was raped by a drill sergeant. And so that was, I think, even more traumatic. I remember when I first laid eyes on him, it was something I'll never forget. There was an overwhelming level of fear, which had nothing to do with the military process itself, but it was something about him that just made me feel like he wanted to kill me. I'll never forget that look in his eye. And so after that, after I actually went to the military is when I left. After I went through basic training and what they call AIT, I actually started at Morgan State University, so I went to the military first. And while I was there, I ran into a man named Ralph Dennis, and he had a church on Ashland Avenue, and he was teaching the Word of God. He's just this awesome teacher. And then years later, he actually became like a father figure to me, because when I was growing up, my mom was raising us. She had my brother and I were 11 months apart. And she had us at 18 and 19, and then she got married at 19 and a half to my father. My father ended up being incarcerated, serving a life sentence, he came out about 20 years later. But during that process, there was someone who mentored me in high school, and then by the time I got to college is when I met Ralph Dennis. So he became like a father to me. Okay. And he began preaching about training, equipping, empowering, and mobilizing in the context of, as Christians, we're pew members, like we're all sitting on the pew, but we have the power to, to excel and to support each other. Like, you don't have to look to a single man or person. Right. You don't look to them, you look to God. Right. And I went to him and I said, I want that to be the name of my business. That's it. It was kind of like Eureka, because I was kind of doing my own business on the side as a sole proprietor, but I couldn't really conceptualize what I wanted to do. So I asked him permission to use that name for my business, Team. And from there, I began to focus that in an educational sense, where any parent, any student, any teacher, any administrator can be teamed, okay? You really can live a transformational life through education. And it really frustrates me because education is actually what saved my life, actually, pouring myself into learning, into, really filling myself with good things, positive thoughts, my passion, working with other people. And so really I began Team as an LLC in 2005. Prior to that, in 1998 up to 2005 is when I was kind of doing it as an individual sole proprietor.
All right.
Wow, that's great. This is actually a question that both you ladies can engage in. We know that sexual abuse for women differs from sexual abuse in men. Could you tell us maybe a men's perspective on sexual abuse and how it could be traumatic for them or even kind of be a proud thing?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. I actually know a very close person who, as a man, was molested by his babysitter. I believe at the beginning, at the age of 6, his babysitter was having sex with him for a number of years, up until possibly age 12. When he was younger and he spoke to other people about it, they actually didn't believe him, because what 7 or 8 year old or 6-year-old is having sex? Sure you are, right? Sure, right. But about the time that he was 10 years old, and he would have these conversations with other men, then it was, oh, great young blood, high five, look at you, you're getting it already. But from my observation of a male who may have experienced that, is that this female who was also a teenager is molesting a young kid who becomes a teenager, who's now a teenager having sex with a young adult, an 18, 19-year-old, opened up an unusual appetite that he didn't know how to deal with. And that gentleman, today he is, a fine young man, but it's taken a lot of support to pull back and realize, I don't need this every day, every 5 minutes, every 24/7.
Right.
But it can be very damaging to them, also of how they entreat women, how they interact with them. These, other men that I know too who have been sexually molested or assaulted, whether it's same-sex or heterosexual, is that they oftentimes then treat intimacy as if it is a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
And so they lack that emotional connection because whatever they were getting was just there. Yeah.
And unfortunately, in our society, because of statistics, I think that's why men get left out. Currently, statistics show that the gender is men that do most of the rape and molestation, and that girls are mostly the victims. So it's 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 6 boys before age 18, and then it's like 1 out of 4 women and then 1 out of 33 men. So when you think about the statistics, they kind of get left out because they're not, to people, it's almost like they're focusing on what they think the immediate need is, which is women and girls. And I too had just zoned in and focused on women and girls because, I feel like we need to pull that statistic apart a little bit. And maybe if, not that we see it continue, but see it maybe equal what is going on with the men, so we can kind of focus on both fronts. But it is a problem with men.
Yeah.
And it also is something that I found is a lot of men who are gay say that they were molested. So
Right.
it changes people's lives
Right.
in ways that others can't imagine. A lot of times we mask it with we were born that way, or I don't know, don't judge me, but underlying is something that needs to be addressed. And I think as a society we need to start talking about it more in regards to both genders so that they're both served.
Yeah.
And can I add to that, because a lot of the young ladies that we see today, we just assume that they're naturally promiscuous, but that's usually a learned behavior.
Yeah.
In both boys and girls. And since 2012, there has been a spike actually in reports of rape and assault in the military. It's actually doubled by 50%. So it's gone up 50% since 2012. And the positive thing is that there's more awareness around it. Folks are encouraged to report these incidents and also to seek help. Unfortunately, though, like LaQuisha is saying, most of the victims are still females.
I also have a question. Have either of you taken justice towards, the people who have done those things to you? But don't answer just yet. We're going to save it until after the break. You're in the VIP room, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Good way.